and this is a live show, so please ask your questions for Brian and Josh to answer. You guys ready?
So, yep.
All right. First question is, what got you guys into real estate?
Let me go first.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, just to be quite honest with you, from 18 to 25, I'm 29 now. I had no clue what I was going to do with my life. I'm the opposite of the stereotypical East Asian, right? So you probably know so much about the Asian community.
Yeah, you can be a doctor or dentist, which one you want to be.
Or a lawyer, right? Or a nurse. So I didn't go the college route. I was a troubled kid. I used to be embarrassed about what I'm about to say, but I'm not anymore since I found real estate. But I actually got a 14 on my ACC. I barely passed. My mom got remarried and moved to Dallas, so I went with her. She begged me to go to college. So I went to college. I went for 2 years, and I did not earn a single credit. So she actually...
2 years?
2 years, yeah.
2 years.
I would pretty much go for the first couple of months of each year, and I just stopped going. So moved back to Oklahoma. My uncle, he took me in, and he was like, Alex, what are you going to do with your life? And I told him, I'm like, Uncle, I don't know. And at this point in my life, I'm 25. I have no desire to have any ambitious goals. I just don't care. I was working at US Cellular at the time, and he walks in and he says, hey, you should go get your realtor license and go work with investors. And the reason why he pointed that out is because he's actually the only entrepreneur of the family. He owns rental properties. So he told me about this class, and he told me to go to an in-house course class so I could learn. He told me to go sit in the front, and I did. And anyways, the course begins, and there's this annoying guy in the back, and he's answering every single question. I'm like, dude, who is this guy? Why is he in this class? He knows every answer. So I told myself, I'm like, you know what? During the bathroom break, I'm definitely gonna, go up to him and ask him, like, hey, why are you here? You know every answer. So, we proceed to the bathroom break, and hey, I'm Alex. He's like, hey, I'm Brian, this guy. And I ask him, why are you here? And how do you know every answer? He's all like, well, I own my own insurance company for the last couple of years. And then I'm also a real estate investor. Instantly a light bulb, because my uncle told me, hey, go to realtor school, get your license, work with investors. So immediately I'm like, okay, cool. I have to ask this guy out for lunch once we get our license, right? So at the time, you owned 18?
Yeah, I just started in real estate. I sold my insurance agency and just started buying properties at the time. And I had about 18 leading up to that. And I was getting my license to save money on transactions. I kept getting outbid. I got outbid on probably 40 properties. I was buying off the MLS, did not know what wholesaling was.
Right.
And so he comes along, and I was getting my license just to save money. I thought if I could save 3%, I could offer 3% more.
Right.
It'd be a wash, and I'd get more deals.
So little did I know, looking back on it now, this was my $1 million meeting. Right. So I had no clue anything about this guy other than he owned a few rental properties, had his own insurance company. So fast forward 2 weeks, it was a fast paced realtor school. Got my license, called Brian up. Brian got his license. Kind of funny. I passed by one question. He got a 98. Right. So nothing's changed so far. My uncle's excited for me. He's like, hey, got your license. I'm going to give you 3 properties to sell off market. I'm like, sweet. I have lunch with this guy, Brian, I just met. He's a real estate investor. So I go to, there's this local joint called The Garage. It's on 122nd or Hefner and May. That's irrelevant. But we meet up there, and I have a piece of copy paper, and I show Brian. There's an address, a purchase price, and a rent amount. So these were already rented through Section 8. He takes a look at the piece of paper, and he's like, I want them. I'm talking 10 seconds, right? I'm like, what do you mean you want them? You haven't seen them.
Yeah.
And he's all like, no, I trust you. I'm all like, you trust me? You haven't seen the properties. He's like, you said it was rented, right? I said, yeah. He's like, I'll just do a drive-by, right? So this was a huge moment in my life, because the most I had ever made in my life during a month span was $2,000, $9,000 in one day, my first day having my license. So over the course of that year, it was 2017.
Real estate's gonna be easy.
I'm like, man, this is awesome,
crazy,
right?
yeah.
So I just made triple the amount that I've ever made in my life. So during that whole year, I have a few other uncles. They have real estate properties, and they would give me their properties, and I would just kind of move them to Brian, right? And then he had friends that were interested as well. So I sold my entire uncle's portfolio to Brian and to some of his friends. And then I guess Brian can kind of talk about how he got started. So.
Yeah, and those deals were one of those when you see it, it's just there's no way they could not work kind of deal. So it was really easy. He didn't know that at the time. Looking back now, he would buy them in a split second.
Or wholesale them for $10,000.
Or wholesale them for $10,000 each and stuff like that. So it's funny that
Right.
It's just an interesting thing to see how that was a life-changing moment for both of us. It really honestly was for both of us at the time, but neither of us knew it at the time.
Mm-hmm.
True.
I was getting some deals and I was happy about that. So, but I got into real estate. Mine was different. I had an insurance agency for about 9 years, and that was fine. Everything was good, made good money. I just saw a transition of what I was doing within the agency and realized that's not what I wanted to be at. And every wealthy person that I'd ever met owned real estate. Usually lots of it, different stuff, from single families all the way up to big commercial stuff. And so I always knew, in the back of my mind, I wanted to own real estate.
Through insurance, you knew that, or other people?
Just other people that I knew. So nothing totally unrelated. A lot of my clients, though, my wealthier clients, owned multiple rentals.
Mm-hmm.
And it always was in the back of my mind to do that. So I knew that was going to be something I wanted to pursue. I've always wanted to own a Subway, rentals, and storage units. I have no idea why. The Subway will never happen. Honestly, I don't want that kind of thing, but just in general.
I've heard good things about Subway.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I have too. But I just, at this point in my life, I was like, I'll stick to just regular real estate. I might own the strip center and lease to someone who wants to have their own Subway, because I don't want to now. But
yeah,
I decided to sell my agency. The lady that I sold my agency to was a friend of mine, and it was perfect timing for her to buy my agency. It was kind of a perfect time at that time to just get out of the business. Things were changing, and actually was a blessing, more than I knew at the time. But she had just bought 14 rentals, and she was always what I would consider wealthy. She'd always done really well. And so I talked with her. She introduced me to her banker, and it was the bank I started with. And I remember meeting with him. I sat down with a meeting. He explained the process. And I remember, at the very end, I was like, so you're telling me, I literally didn't believe him. I was like, so you're telling me if I buy this amount of money and I fix it up, you'll refinance up to 80% of my money out? He's like, yeah. I was like, are you sure? I didn't believe him. It seemed too good to be true. I was like, I can find a deal. Right. I was willing to do the work. I was willing to put in sweat equity and actually do the work. And at the time, I was like, I can make this work. So that's how I started specifically getting into real estate. I sold my agency, started buying properties. As I said earlier, I got outbid on so many properties. I was like, I got to figure out something, because I'm not going to get as many deals as I want to.
So let me ask you this question, because there's a lot of people that try to do this on the side. Why did you sell your agency?
I wanted out of that business. And it was time consuming. What I told my wife when I went home was like, if I stay in this, I'm going to die in 10 years of stress. It was just too much. I had 7 staff members, which is not a lot for a lot of people, but at the time it was just more stuff to deal with. Renewals, everything changing. Oklahoma is a really unique insurance state because of the amount of storms we have. Rates fluctuate dramatically. It's normal to get your home insurance to go from $1,800 to $2,400 or $2,800 over one renewal. And so it's a lot of disruption, a lot of selling. And I had people that would call. My name was on the agency, and the company I was with would not allow anything different. So I had people would call back, I need to talk to Brian Higgins right now. And it'd be over a billing issue. They drafted the account on the 4th instead of the 5th, and they're upset about it. Like, I'm canceling all my policies if I don't talk to Brian right now. And I couldn't get my name off of it, where a lot of people with a business, you can distance yourself. You could have XYZ insurance. They don't even know you exist, but I couldn't. Right. And so I was like, man, if I'm stuck here forever. And I saw real estate as a pathway to freedom for all the reasons that we do as well, like what we do now. So we're obviously still very involved in our business right now, but by choice. So
you mentioned in the beginning that you acquired 14, 18 rentals, something like that, before you got licensed.
Yeah. And
you had possibility to buy 40 that you got bid out on.
Yeah.
I guess what you talked about, the wanting to create wealth, that's what got you down that road. But the BRRRR strategy, a lot of people that listen to the show tend to be more wholesaler centric. What was it about BRRRR? What was it that attracted you to go down that road?
I could buy more properties with the least amount of cash possible out of my own pocket. So it allowed me to buy more without having to have. I talk to people in real estate all the time, and we get asked this question a lot of, how do you have 160 houses? Do you have $20 million in the bank? Are you just super rich? And
Daddy's rich.
Yes, daddy's rich. I didn't have a rich dad. My dad was a pastor, never made tons of money. And that strategy allowed me to do that. I knew I could find a deal, and I knew I was willing to work. I laid flooring, I painted houses, I fixed trim, I fixed plumbing, all those things I was willing to learn. And YouTube and Google are your best friend for almost anything in a house if you're willing to do it. I got to the point where I didn't need to, because I found some good contractors that were reasonable and I could make numbers work that would still work. And so that was kind of that transition. But we get that question a lot from people, like, how do I do this? I don't have any money. And a lot of people transition from they get into wholesaling to get cash to buy deals.
Right.
But putting 20% down, I can't afford to put 20% down on my portfolio. It's just, that's so much money. So BRRRR strategy allows you to do that. And I think you need to be willing to grind a little bit and work. And it is hard to do it on the side, but I know people that do that with a full-time job. They work in the evenings. Again, if you're going to do it, do it. You know, buy that house, learn to put flooring in, buy a basic click lock, learn to do tile. Google's an amazing friend, and that process is very simple. That's the one thing about houses is beyond a few things like fixing a heat and air unit or some very specific things,
Right.
a lot of the stuff you can physically do yourself. It's not terrible. You can get cheap help to help you, just hourly labor.
So did you guys partner up initially right out of real estate school, or like what was that?
no,
That was just
he
me going around. You know, I would network with wholesalers. We have a whole bunch of really good wholesalers in Oklahoma City. In fact,
I still at this time didn't know what wholesaling homes was.
Mhm.
Legitimate, had no idea. I bought homes from probably wholesalers on Craigslist that I didn't know they were wholesaling.
Mhm.
I just thought I was buying a house from someone who listed on Craigslist.
and all I'm thinking is I need to be a person of value so I can be valued by him, right?
Mhm.
Because he didn't know it, but I knew he was going to be my mentor.
Mhm.
Till this day, he hates when
Still
I call
not
him
a
that,
mentor.
but he's my mentor.
Mhm.
So I knew, because we both had our licenses, it would make no sense for me to find on-market deals. Theoretically, he could do the same thing. So what am I going to do? I'm going to go, I still don't really know how to wholesale, but I know wholesalers know how to wholesale. So I'm going to network with them, get on their buyers list, go meet with them, hang out with them, get to know them, get those deals first, right? And then I would attach a finder's fee. I'd ask Brian, like, please, like, will you, you've never seen a deal like this. And he would look at the deal and be like, what is this? I'm like, this is an on-market, off-market deal. We call it a wholesale deal.
Mhm.
And
He'd be like, do you mind if I add $2,000 or whatever to it? I'm like, yeah, it's fine. Like, I didn't care because it was a good deal. You
Right.
know,
Numbers
even with
worked.
that. Yeah.
right. So pretty much it was 2018 March. Okay, I'm still finding deals for him on the side. I went on Bigger Pockets for some reason. I haven't been on since like 2016. Okay, all I do was edit my profile, and in that bio I said, hey, I work with out-of-state investors. If you're an out-of-state investor, please email me, give me a call. At that point, I only worked with one out-of-state investor, but hey, I'm not lying. So
Mhm.
long story short, about a week later, I get an email, a long email, and I think it's spam, right? So I'm like, what is this? You know, so it's pretty much this person in a different state, in the Pacific Northwest, and she is saying, hey, I had this big group of investors, right? Doctors, lawyers, Facebook people, whatever, people who work for Google, and we're looking to invest in the Midwest, but we're looking for a realtor to work with, right? So I still kind of thought like, hey, is it spam or what?
I get
right?
those emails. I always think they're spam.
All right, so I'm going to be honest with you. So she asked, like, can I interview you? And the only reason why I said yes to the interview is because I thought the lady was pretty attractive. She had a portrait. I'm like, sure, whatever. So I remember exactly where I was. My Oklahoma friends tuning in right now will know. I was driving on 23rd in Portland, just driving around. I get this out-of-state number calling me, and I'm like, man, who is this? But I'm going to pick it up because I'm a realtor. I got to pick it up. So I picked it up, and it's her. So she immediately dives into the interview, right? So she asked me two questions that she asked several other realtors in the metro, and they did not know how to answer it. And she asked me, what is cash on cash return? And then she asked me, what's cap rate? And I answered it just freely, right? And then she said to me, she paused and said, no one's been able to answer that.
Really?
And I laughed. I'm like,
It's crazy.
I laughed. I'm like, really? Like, I just learned it off of YouTube, honestly, like a couple weeks before, right?
Yeah.
I didn't tell her that. So she told me, she's like, hey, I want to start sending you some deals. Or sorry. She said, I want to start working with you guys. And can you please send me some deals? I'm like, sure. So instantly, it's kind of ironic because I mentioned 23rd in Portland for a reason, okay? Kid you not, I get an off-market deal from a broker, 23rd in Portland, okay? I get the P&L, the rent roll, email it to the investor and her. 5 minutes later, it's in contract. I'm mind blown. I'm like, I'm about to sell an 18-unit apartment, all because I just updated my bio on Bigger Pockets claiming I work with out-of-state investors, right? Yeah. So, that sale went through in the fall of 2018, but then I have like 30 or 40 families like just annoying me. It's getting really stressful. Brian's like, hey, how's that relationship going, in the Pacific Northwest with that person?
I got introduced to her at the exact same time and in talking with her. And so I built a relationship with her, but very, very minor just in general. He was the one, this was his deal that he was doing. And I was just helping him. He'd call me and ask questions about different things in the area, different properties coming up. And so I was in a weird way, like kind of consulting with him just to help. Right. And so she called me one day and she's like, hey, like, I think we're just overwhelming Alex. It's just too much, too many investors, which is a good problem to have. It's like too many buyers, right? Like that's insane, right? And so anyways, he was getting deals and sending to him. They were doing properties, but it was just a lot of questions. a lot of new investors that require a lot of information, a lot of training, a lot of help along the way. Most of these people were not
sophisticated.
No, and they were not buyers. That once we got them acquainted, kind of accustomed to it, they understood more. They were all very intelligent people.
Mm-hmm.
Like all of them were extremely intelligent, but I think a lot of them would fall into the analysis paralysis category,
mm-hmm.
where just they need a lot of information. That's consuming when you're constantly asking questions, and they deal with the same circumstance and that, but that's the nature of what they do as a business.
Right.
And so he was like, I tried to call him and was like, actually, I haven't talked to Alex in like a week. That's kind of weird. And so
Right.
I call him, I was like, hey man, you're going to lose this. And this is my retirement plan right here.
Right,
This
right.
is my retirement plan. You need to keep this relationship. So I'll help you.
Yeah.
I said, I'm going to help you. We'll 50-50 split and I'm going to help you. And so I said, get me to 60 properties. I was at like maybe 45.
Yeah.
So get me to 60 properties. I won't buy any more properties. I'll just help you. We'll sell
Mm-hmm.
and do really, it'd be a very profitable business. And it
Right.
was. And that's essentially what started the transition to selling to investors.
Right. So it
And,
was January of 2019. Brian decided to help me out. At that point, I'd sold like 4 properties to the West Coast. End of December 2019, 120.
Wow.
Multifamily, sold a 37
Storage
unit
units.
storage unit, sold a big storage unit north of the
Right.
city, and really interesting process. We learned a lot just in general. It expedited so fast. I think a lot of people where you drink the fire hose,
Mm-hmm.
and it's so much information, it's so much to do. I never planned to do 120 rehabs in 1 year, plus the ones we were doing for myself as well. So we probably rehabbed 160 homes that year.
Gotcha. So not only were you selling it to them, you're rehabbing it.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's part of our deal. We would sell it.
I can see why you're overwhelmed.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, I was thinking like 40 transactions, like whatever.
No big deal.
But
We weren't doing that at the time. He was just selling them properties and connecting them with contractors.
Yeah.
And they had connections with other contractors and property managers they were already working with, and that just wasn't going to work. So when we started selling them, we said, hey, we'll sell you the deal. We'll also fix it for you at cost, which is unique. No one does that. I mean, where can you
Right.
call and get a BRRRR property that someone takes care of everything from you, including putting a tenant in?
Mhm.
And you're gonna end up, depending on the appraisal and the rehab, they're gonna of course fluctuate because you're buying an as-is property, but you're gonna end up with anywhere from 10 to 20% equity. We had some people that had 30 or 40% equity in unique deals,
Right.
where we try to be conservative on our numbers. We would never send out a deal that has 150 ARV if we weren't sure, and we
Mhm.
always would be on the low end. So we've had properties we sent out with 140 ARV and it'd be 185 appraisal, stuff like that.
Right.
But
Yeah.
we would never have suggested 185 ever in a million years because it was a unique circumstance.
So what's the difference between what you were doing with the investors on the West Coast versus selling turnkey?
Well, that's what it was.
That's what it was. So we basically would sell to them at a discount. We would fix it on their dime, but we were doing it at cost. So they're all in around 80%, as opposed to your typical turnkey buyers all in at appraised value. So they're
Got it.
buying it, putting 20% down. In this case, our investors are leaving with almost 20% equity, and give or take 5.
And what kind of cash on cash were they getting?
Oh, anywhere from 35 to 100.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's
infinite.
just ridiculous.
Right, so-
Yeah.
Yeah, that's out of
They're-
control.
They're getting in deals with zero money. I mean, they're burring out of state deals and they're not having to ever touch it. They send
Yeah.
photos and send checks.
Right.
And I mean,
Right.
that doesn't, we've talked to other people in CG as well. We talked to other people that have tried that model and
Mhm.
had issues with it. And we have had issues the same. Our biggest thing is explaining to someone that as a contractor, if we give a rehab that's 14 to 16, if it comes in at $16,100, they're like, I thought it was 16, like was the max. I'm like, well, we're doing this at cost. Like 16.1 was the actual cost. Like we didn't mark up. There's no way for us to eat $100 when that's just
We're not
what it
making any
actually
money.
costs. We're not making money on the construction side. And that's so weird. I think people got hung up on the idea that they're expecting us, we're making some kind of profit on the construction. So if there's a budget overage or something like that,
You guys eat it.
we eat it, and we weren't. And we also were doing $28,000 worth of work for $16,000 because we're doing it at the exact same cost that we pay. So we're doing it at the absolute best cost possible. So explaining that, kind of going over that was one of the things that we learned to be more thorough, better communication. Some things we learned. It was hard. Honestly, that first year was tough because we did so many deals unexpectedly in a short period of time.
So how did you guys manage that many properties to as a contractor? I mean, you didn't have your GC license yet.
No, I do it. I
He
was
does
just doing
He's
it.
a lion.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
Mufasa.
He
There's a
was-
running joke back in Oklahoma City that he's Mufasa, but in this story he doesn't die. And
Yeah.
I'm Simba.
So I mean, you just figured it out.
Yeah.
And
Just
then-
like we talked about.
And then, that's what I was gonna say. That's something we talked about just before this. The consistency or the trait that we typically see. You want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, the trait that we generally see, we saw a mutual friend of ours on Facebook post about this, but a mutual trait that we see amongst people that are successful, but also just doing things at a high level, is that they just do it.
Mm-hmm.
They'll figure it out. We joke about this too, but they'll figure it out.
Right.
And they'll dive in, they'll go, and that's how I've always been. Once I understand a very basic understanding, my very first house I bought 3.
Mm-hmm.
I put one in contract, immediately put another one in contract, and 3 days later put another one in contract, because once I saw that I could make the numbers work, it was very simple and very straightforward and very clear. I don't get caught up in analysis paralysis, as you do as well.
Okay.
We were talking about that. That's one common trait with these people. A lot of people we see in CG and some of these things, they just do it.
Yeah.
And they'll take their lumps. We've all taken our lumps in the business.
We're not perfect.
No.
We're just willing to fail.
I've been exactly willing to fail and being okay with it, and knowing that I will just pick back up and do the same thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Big fail, small fail, doesn't matter.
You know, I was having a conversation with my wife a few months back, and the problem that we have is that we just move at different speeds.
Yeah.
So like, you know, let's say we have a goal that we accomplish together. You know, like a financial goal, asset goal, whatever, and it's great. We hit our goal, right?
Yeah.
But then the next milestone, she's like, you know, we can just improve it 20%. I was like, if we can just 5x this.
Yeah,
No problem. Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly.
And so like, I will never be satisfied.
Yeah.
Right.
And she's like, why can't we just move slower? It's like, but what's the point?
Why move slow?
Right.
That's a common thought process, because mine's the same way. Why buy 20 homes when you can buy 100?
Yeah.
If the BRRRR strategy works and you can make it work, why would you ever not buy? Like,
Yeah.
why would you ever stop? You could, I mean,
Let's just
You
max
go
out this credit card right now. Let's
$1
go.
billion in assets if you wanted to. If, you know, again, perfect world. We all know there are deals. Everybody's had deals that go south. You've had deals that you have more money tied up than you expected.
Yeah.
Things go wrong. You buy a house. I bought a house, and a week after they turn on I did an inspection. It's one of the very first 18 I bought. MLS deal. They did an inspection, turn on the power, check everything out. Everything's fine. I get there and I'm looking, and I look up in the kitchen, and there's a wet spot. And I was like, was that there? It's like a little ring. And I was like, no. So I left the next day. I came back and it was bigger, but I was like, is that bigger? So I took a picture of it. The next day I came back and it was like 4 feet wide, and the furnace was above it and had an issue with the furnace.
Mm-hmm.
It was a lay down unit in the attic, and we did the inspection. It was off this whole time. So when they did the inspection, they turned it on, but it took about a week for the condensation to build up to leak into it. So I had to replace the furnace almost immediately.
Right.
You know, and I didn't budget or plan for that. It was
Nope.
fine and the deal was good, but that's just life. That's real estate. And I didn't freak. I was just called around. And I still to this day use the same heat and air guy. The guy that he bid me a reasonable cost. I had people walk through and like, you got to redo the ducting in here and blah, 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 blah. And he's like, I'll just put a new furnace in. Like, that's fine. And so we still use that same guy to this day.
Because he was honest.
Yes,
Yeah.
he was honest and straightforward, and there was no BS about it, but I learned that, and I didn't panic when that happened. Some
Right.
people panic. You just like, hey, I'll figure it out. And it was a great deal, and that always helps. Buying right, of course, is the key to everything.
Right.
For
As
sure.
anyone would tell you. If you
Yeah.
give the right price on your purchase, you're fine for most anything, for the most part.
So that was 2019.
2019.
What about 2020?
So November of 2019, I get a call from Brian. And at this point, again, he has a portfolio of 60 properties. I just bought 3 that year, and I also made a lot of cash. And I'm kind of freaking out for tax season. But Brian surprises me with an amazing call. And he's like, hey, man, all these properties you're putting in contract? I'm like, yeah. He's like, we're buying them now. I'm like, why? He's like, we're buying them now. I'm all like,
Buying
so
everything.
We're buying everything. So he was, not fed up. That was a great experience working with who we worked with on the West Coast. Made a lot of cash, helped a lot of people.
Yeah.
Buy-
Build generational
Yeah.
wealth for people. I mean, legitimate wealth.
Right. So he makes that call, and I remember that November we put 30 deals in contract. We closed on every.
Close on almost all of those in that same calendar year between
Right.
like November 17th to December 31st.
Mhm.
I was like, we're buying everything. That's where the OPM comes in. But where I was like, we're buying everything. If I'm going to do all this work, I'm going to work 12-hour days, 14-hour days. My wife is like, you need to come back. Like, we need to reel this back in. Like, I come when part of investors being at different time zones, I come in at 5, it's 3, or it's 7 p.m. They're getting off work
Right.
and they have a question. So they call, and I'm walking around my house at 7, talking, playing with my kids, talking on the phone, and giving them the due service that they deserve as clients, of course. So we're talking, and I was like, we got to do something different. So then talking with a friend of mine who's like, hey, like, you should just keep all these deals. So you're doing all this work, you might as well keep them and build the wealth for yourself.
Yeah.
So we did.
Yeah.
And we bought 100 and more than 100, and we did still sell properties. So we sold properties. COVID was a very unique year for everybody, including us. Lending was an issue. That's where the private money comes in. We started raising private money. We joined CG at that time and learned about other ways to do it. Before, all we had raised it, which is one way that a lot of people do is just by telling people. I was talking about what we were doing, not realizing that people would reach out to me later, like, hey, I want to lend to you. I was just telling them what we were doing. I had no idea, never crossed my mind to even ask or think that they would lend.
Right.
And I was just, hey, we're buying houses and, you know, we're doing private money and we're paying this and getting this. They're getting a great return and we're buying these properties. And that started that conversation. Right. But we bought the majority of properties we put in contract in 2020. And we sold, I think we still ended up selling like 25, maybe.
25.
Yeah.
So extra cash.
So when did this BRRRR thing come into play?
We really from 2019, we started doing that. And then one of our clients coined that term whenever she called you, because you're basically doing turnkeys, but they're BRRRR deals. They're like burn keys. And that's how it came up at that time. So we started jokingly calling that at that time, that term. But in 2020, we decided to keep the majority of them. And it became an issue of getting lending during that time because of COVID hit. So that's why we started selling some as well. And more of that just going through the process with banks, with PPP and EIDL loans, all those things. Banks had a lot of reasons to take their time. Appraisers not going in properties. So we were holding properties a lot longer than we expected, waiting on banks. Found a lot of new banks, talked to some really good ones, found the best bank ever that we've ever worked with during this process, which was awesome. And but COVID was an interesting year. So then we decided to transition back to, hey, at this point, like getting lending when your portfolio gets in the $10-20 million range, like it's not that simple to just send some up. Sometimes it is, and it depends on the banks, but I was like, I don't want to get in a situation where we're having to hold properties for X amount of time.
Right.
Unless we have, so we do this now as well with private money. And this is one thing like Jay Connor talked about. Alex, I know we'll give him a shout out to Jay Connor there later, but Jay Connor is awesome. And talking about that, I know he does a lot of funding with private money where they're holding his properties indefinitely, not just temporarily. We always thought so. See, it's kind of singular focused. I can definitely find myself getting singular focused. One way works and I just keep doing it until someone's like, hey, what about this? I'm like, oh, that's a great idea too. So I, kind of reevaluate at the time. And so Jay, during that meeting, I was like, man, we could do that. So now we do that. When we raise private money, we changed our terms. We still offer a good interest rate, but we changed our terms on what we were willing to do. That way we can use that money indefinitely. So we have them sign 1-year agreements. We pay them at whatever payment structure they'd like, whether it was 3 months, 6 months, annually. We give them that choice and we pay them their interest at the time, but we took away origination fees, points, anything like that to get away from that. So we can hold properties a little longer without getting hammered and use it for multiples. So if we have one investor calls their $100,000, we'll just use another investor's 100 to cover it, and vice versa.
It's not that we were just getting hammered too. I would say we just didn't know any better.
Yeah,
we thought, I'll just throw the number out there. We were getting charged 4 and 10, but we were getting 100% of what we were asking.
4 and 10.
Yes, I know, Steve.
Wow.
I know.
But again,
we had some that were 2 and 12. We had some that were 2 and 10. It kind of varied on stuff, but part of that too, if I told you could get that, you have all your money out, including your OPM fees, factoring in the deal, and you're going to own a property outright with no cash tied up. Like it's still worth it to do. Our purchase prices are so low.
Different market though too.
Yeah,
from the city, right?
That is very true.
Under 100,000.
Yeah,
so we don't have to do that anymore, and that's part of it too. So now that changed, and it kind of was an eye-opening experience that we talked to other private money lenders in other states, like out here where purchase prices are higher. They're doing 2 and 10, 2 and 12. Some are less than that, even less.
Not in Phoenix.
Interest only.
Not in Phoenix.
Any Phoenix private money people, hit us up in this chat after. Leave your email in our. I'm just kidding.
Well, but they have to be like, it's $9.95 doc fee.
Okay, yeah. So we have.
But no points.
What about appraisals? No.
Nothing.
Yeah. So
that's.
It's not 100% though.
For sure.
Right. It's not 100% financing. But anyway, so you guys are for 2020, COVID obviously was a challenge.
For sure.
How did it impact your guys' business directly, besides the financing part? I mean, there must have been some other challenges as well.
That was the main issue.
We bought a lot of deals in 2020. They did slow down a little bit from wholesalers, the MLS being so hot.
To be honest, I think it actually even helped, to be honest. So appraisers wouldn't go in. So they would just get a scope of work, take a picture of the outside, and we get the value that we assumed it would be. Right. So actually helped.
There were things that helped for sure. We got more deals. We were still buying actively when a lot of people were nervous to buy.
You were holding back.
Yeah.
And you were just pressing forward.
Yes. And we knew lots of wholesalers that slowed their marketing or limited it completely. So there were less wholesale deals out there. There were still people actively looking and finding deals. So we were getting deals that way. But we also had being willing to buy and just being willing to figure it out. You know, I mean, ultimately that and hold it with private money. We raised, I mean, I think just during this year alone, we used $9 million in private money just during that COVID year.
That's
So-
not 4 and 10, by the way.
Yeah,
That's
correct.
not
Correct.
Right.
That was not 4 and 10.
So let's talk about that, because that's something that's always an interesting topic.
Yeah.
Right.
How did you guys raise 10 million
Yeah.
in funds?
Yeah, so pretty much, you know, we got introduced to Collective Genius.
Mhm.
So shout out Jason Mendley, Frank Cava, and Leon Barnes.
Corey Boatwright.
Corey Boatwright. He's the local mogul in Oklahoma City,
Mhm.
and he referred us over. So I remember, you know, I was walking in the office one day. Brian's like, "Hey, come on, there's about to be a meeting," and Jay Connor was on. So I didn't know who Jay Connor was at the time, but he starts to go into his presentation of private money.
That's right when I joined.
Really?
Oh, yes.
Okay,
Okay.
cool.
Yeah.
So back in the spring.
Yeah.
Okay.
His
cool.
mid of the year.
So he's pretty much, you know, he has this whole like presentation, has all these flyers, and it's really just asking for it, right? So I know we touched a little bit about that, you know, but just ask for it. And then so it pretty much became important to us after that call. We have to tell everyone. We've been talking to a few people. Let's tell everybody. Let's just simply ask. We have credibility. We've done this many deals, right? Let's just ask. And then Austin and Jake Daraff, 23-year-olds, they've been on your show before.
Crazy.
Killers.
Killing it.
Right? Killing it. They put a flyer on Facebook. And it's like a light bulb. I'm like, well, okay, flyer, Zoom call. Let's do the same thing, right? So we did the same thing. On that Zoom call, I think we had 12 people, including my mom, who never wanted to invest in our company at all. And we converted 4 people, which then later on converted 2 more. Right? So 12 people on the call, and 6 people wanted to invest at 12% interest.
Yeah.
And we were previously getting charged 4 and 10. So just asking.
Yeah.
Right.
Just simply asking. I think a lot of the times we get afraid to ask because it just seems, how can I ask this guy for $100,000, right? Well, if you break it down and if you let them know it's backed by a mortgage and I'm getting it at 50% on the dollar. Hey, if I just so happen to leave the country, you get this house, but I'm in the process of buying foreclosed homes. I don't want to be foreclosed on, right? So just explaining to people very basic, and you know, sooner or later you'll get a few yeses.
Yeah.
But 12 people came on the Zoom, and you guys raised $9 million.
Yeah.
It's really good numbers
It is.
from
For
9 people or from 12 people.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah.
But really, honestly, part of that too, we churned properties aggressively because we were buying and refinancing aggressively as well. So that's part of it too. They may loan us $100,000 to buy a house. We refinance it 3 or 4 months later. We're buying it again. We already have a closing set up. So we're constantly churning. They didn't necessarily have $9 million just set aside just for us.
Right.
Got it.
And so that's part of it too. That
So you guys made a big transition, right, from 2019 to 2020, or I guess the end of 2019.
Right.
Yeah.
What were some of the challenges besides financing, right? Because you got your operations basically.
Yeah.
You guys did a 180 in your operations.
Yeah.
What were some of the challenges operationally, you know, with an organization?
Really for us, it got easier almost. As weird as that sounds, for me, I generally am managing rehabs, managing the finances, managing a lot of the aspects of that business. That for me, when it turned to where it was my money and not another investor's money, this sounds terrible to say, but I cared less. I cared more about the investor's money. So if there was $100 wasted as opposed to,
I think that's normal.
okay.
Yeah.
So I cared deeply, and that was very stressful in 2019 because if our guys went to fix something and messed something up, they broke a toilet setting it or something like that, it was because of our process, it was going to cost them another $100 for a toilet, which again is, I know in the grand scheme of things is very minor. It was very stressful. When it was my money, I was like, yeah, they broke a toilet. Like, we'll survive. It's $100. Because I was a seasoned investor, I was used to it. So that made it easier. COVID adding things, the cost of things changed dramatically. The cost of our labor, materials, all those things. Even currently, 2x4s finally came back down to like a reasonable amount. But at one point, a basic 2x4 stud was like $7 when it went from $323 to $723 overnight, it felt like.
Yeah.
And so accounting for those costs, accounting for those changes, operationally, we were still doing things the same way because he was still looking for deals the same way with the same people. I mean, all that process stayed the same. So as we were coming in, we'd found all these new banks during that process. So we went through financials with half a dozen banks, it felt like, and they were slow. Every bank, for the most part, it felt like was slow playing the process because they were they were waiting to see. It was election year, it was COVID, it was what's the Fed going to do, and some of those things. And so it was just kind of, it was a unique year. And so that delayed us. But for us, we just kept plugging along. One, we've never bailed on a contract and we never will. So if we put it in a contract, we will close. Even if we were keeping it, selling it, doesn't matter. We have borrowed money from friends to close a property. You know, they just other buddies that knew us and knew, even if it was for a day, an hour, or 10 days kind of deal. And we've done that. So that helped as far as closing deals, but just in general, the process was the same because we were still rehabbing homes the same way at the same rate, essentially.
Yeah.
So it was kind of funny. We met right in CG in Tampa.
Yeah.
Right. And you had made a post and your friends were like, "How do you know Steve Trang?" Right. Which I think is hysterical because I was telling the story to my wife. It's like their friends are impressed that they know me. And I'll tell my wife, it's like, these guys made $1 million and they don't pay taxes. I am more interested. I want to be them. So let's talk about that. How does someone get to a point where they're making $1 million tax free?
Yeah. Buying lots of properties in a short period of time and spending lots of money on rehab.
Yeah.
So when they changed, I think it was the last administration came into office, they changed some rules on accelerated depreciation, being able to take that up front. So when you buy a property that you spend, let's say you put a roof, heat and air, a whole bunch of different things to the property, paint, carpet. Before, you had to depreciate those assets out at different rates, just like you do on a purchase, a property, 27.5 years. And that is maybe in Oklahoma, the purchase prices are so low that, depreciating a house over 27.5 years, that's $100,000. Your cost base is nothing. I mean, you're getting a couple $1,000s a year right off. You do that though 100 times in a year, that adds up real quick to hundreds of thousands of dollars. Add the rehab on top of that, being able to take that accelerated depreciation up front and to, put a roof on that you don't have to do it over 15 years, or putting heat and air. And so we give us the option to do that. We will get to a point right now. Part of the reason we're able to do that is because we bought so many properties so fast and spent so much on rehab during that time. We will do a cost seg when the time comes. Like I said, that's a conversation with our CPA to do that, to really get an additional breakdown, a more detailed breakdown to structure it. We just haven't needed to. So
going back to what we said earlier, you already done it once where you can do $1 million tax free.
Yeah.
Why don't you just keep buying hundreds of houses every year and keep?
So that's the plan. People ask us our goals. I don't know.
We are. It's exactly right. So we still sell properties. It's nice to get easy cash, and we don't pick and choose. If we put a house on contract, it's a house we were going to buy anyways. So like I said, we closed on a duplex and 2 single families this week that we sent out to our investors and no one took it. Numbers didn't work, timing, cash was out, whatever the reason, no one took it. And we didn't send it to a lot of people. We just sent it to a few that we knew were buying right now.
And really quick, let me add, if any of my wholesaler friends are listening, it's not a daisy chain. These are out-of-state buyers, friends, family that we work with too.
Correct.
That have bought from us too. So.
Yeah, and that's never our intent. I mean, like I said, we don't mass mail out stuff. We just have a few people that it's almost like preferred clients, if you will, is the best way to describe it. But
Got it.
Long story short, we still sell to those because the cash is easy to take advantage of. It's nice to get an influx of cash during that time for tax season hits, and you got to pay taxes on 160 properties. That's never fun. So it's nice to get that.
For property taxes.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. End of the year. It's brutal. Sad day. My wife's like, "Is it like this every year?" I'm like, "Yeah." It just wasn't 160 last year, so it didn't quite feel as bad.
So you guys do property taxes once a year, not twice a year.
You can't. No, you can pay half now.
Yeah, we do twice a year. That's why I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, ours is end of January and end of March are those 2 big days that.
Wow.
I know, it's weird.
That's painful.
Yes.
All right. So you guys are acquiring lots of properties. So, one of the things, again, we talk about, there's a lot of wholesaling here. So sourcing deals is important.
Yeah.
How are you guys sourcing deals?
That's probably one of the biggest things we would talk about specifically, as far as, and Alex touched on it earlier, and I'll let him explain it because that's really his forte thing. He's been extremely good at during this process.
So he touched on it. Well, one, we have a really unique community in Oklahoma City. I think it's different than most markets. We all get along, right? So, I mean, we're a big community of wholesalers, investors, flippers. We all hang out. It's not hanging out just to hang out. We genuinely like each other. We would consider each other a family. So, I mean, pretty much every day I'm hanging out with these guys. I'm evaluating deals with them. I'm the one, again, I'm single, have no kids. I see their deals first. I'm not going to speak for every wholesaler in the Oklahoma City market, but I would say 3/4 of the wholesale deals, we're receiving them first. And a big reason why is because, like Brian said, we've never not closed on a deal. So your reputation is everything in this game, especially in Oklahoma. We're a southern hospitable state. We talk, right? As soon as you mess up, someone knows. So the last thing we want is to put something in contract, not close on it, and now Jason's telling Jeremy, right? So, hey, Brian and Alex didn't close on that. That's the last thing we want. So even if I put something in contract, I put deals in contract fairly fast. Pictures, we buy sight unseen
all the time.
All the time. I would say 98% of the time, because we're in a hot market right now.
Yeah.
Even if I later on run my numbers and I realize, dang, we're gonna have like $5,000 tied up in this deal, we'll still close. Always. So all of my friends in Oklahoma City, they know no matter what, once we sign or verbally agree, verbal is big too.
Yeah.
Once we say, hey, we want it, we'll never back out. So for anyone who's new in the game, your reputation with real estate is super important. If you mess up once, that could really dictate the rest of your real estate career. It'll be really tough.
Even if you're going to be in a tight position, try to find a way to make it work. And if you absolutely can't explain your situation, it's like, I can't, I wanted this, whatever your intentions are, as long as it's not ill intent,
Right.
that will also spread too, and it can save your reputation just by being truthful.
Yeah.
And that's one of our biggest things, is being truthful. We're both we're people pleasers. We like to have good relationships and keep good relationships. And
Right.
they're, some of the deals that we get, and a lot of the times the relationships we built are because we have built friendships with these people. I mean, a lot of the wholesalers, they're actual friends we meet. There was never an intent in a business manner to do it, to make a connection with somebody for XYZ. We are helpful to people. If they want to run comps, they want to run numbers. They run numbers by us all the time, even on deals we don't buy.
Right.
And
We'll help them
you've
move
helped.
deals.
I mean, you've helped multiple wholesalers that are new in the game, where they'll message him and ask questions. He'll help them verify their numbers, so they know even on deals we aren't buying.
That's huge in the game too. If you're a new wholesaler and your ARV is wrong, you don't want to build up a reputation from investors who are buying. I get, just long story short, I get deals all the time from investors, from wholesalers, not even gonna look at it, because they've already built that reputation from the get-go. And I know it's not a deal. I won't even open the email.
And everybody knows it. It's one of those things, and you build up that reputation of not knowing your numbers, not being able to justify it. People will ask, how did you come up with that ARV? Do you have comps? And crickets from that point. So
right, it's just because they're trying to move a deal. They got a skinny deal they're trying to move.
Yeah, Facebook has been critical for us, and I don't know how it is in Phoenix or some of the other markets, but in Oklahoma, the Facebook, there's some very good wholesale groups on Facebook, actual wholesalers that are doing good deals, and no spam, just very minimal if it is. And that was very critical to getting connected with people.
Is it still that good?
Yes. Still in fact, I would say there's no spam.
Yeah.
I mean, there's maybe a comment a week of spam
of random
Malik trying to sell his skip tracing.
Yes.
So
skip trace leads and all that stuff. And so very little, but we built a lot of the connections we have through people. There are people, one of our good friends, Jack buys houses, these signs he puts all over the south side of the city. He's always done bandit signs. Everybody knows. I've known about Jack buys houses forever. And then I finally meet him like 4 years later. I'm like, oh, he's Jack, he's like one of our best friends, but it's just,
really?
We're the first ones up in the morning.
Yeah.
I'm at the point now, if I'm not there, I'm scared because I'm not going to get the deal. Right. So
it literally feels like that.
And byproduct of it as well. We're working out, we're staying fit, we're being healthy. So kind of works out,
Yeah, no, absolutely. So let's see. So you guys are all camaraderie, so there's not really a lot of competition, or is there still competition?
Well,
so there are a lot. I mean, there's a lot of wholesalers in Oklahoma City, and people would argue that there's competition. We just don't see it that way.
Right.
Just our personal, kind of observation of it. It doesn't feel that way. You do have, and we know of stories where 2 wholesalers, 3 wholesalers go to the same house, and we've heard of stories where you do have circumstances where maybe one wholesaler takes a deal from someone else, maybe not in a good way, not in a reputable way, and it will affect them on getting deals and their connections with everybody else, and we all know about it.
Right.
I mean, just because we're so connected, but there are wholesalers that don't come to work out with us and know that we still work with them,
for sure.
And but yeah, it's the market is competitive. There are lots of wholesalers in Oklahoma City. We bought last year. We bought deals from 33 different wholesalers.
Right.
Wow.
A lot of them were multiples, and so we've had new ones even this year that are people we never bought deals from. And I looked. We always keep like a list of deals that maybe went bad. Nothing was wrong, but maybe they didn't close because of a probate issue or seller disappeared. The seller stopped talking to the wholesale. Everybody knows that. We keep those. I looked. We have 9 or 10 of those that have happened like in the last year where like something happened. And they were all from different people, like every single one of them. But they're people we bought other deals from as well. None of them were one-off. It was just kind of a unique one that.
Yeah. So you guys aren't doing direct to seller then?
We are
now.
So CG has inspired us. In fact, we just hired my cousin and then also a good friend. So we have 2 acquisition guys, and they're actually working right now.
Gotcha.
Probably watching us too, but they're working right now.
We did some last year and some in 2019 as well, but very minimal, just sending out postcards, typical stuff. They landed us deals, which it worked, but it wasn't like a structured part of our business. It is for 2021.
Yeah.
So We
Got
got
it.
signed up with a whole bunch of different providers.
So walk me through your typical deal. What does it look like?
Got it? You want me good?
Well, yeah, you can pick one if you want.
Okay, cool. Let's see if we can do a recent one, like an
68.
actual example.
We just bought 68.
Southwest 68.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do another one. That was skinny.
Just 111th.
111.
So we bought it for 78.5. It's a house that would be a 4.2.
Right.
We ended up renting it for 12. It was a smaller one, so we ended up renting it for 12.50, I think.
ARV 139.
So what are you getting it at? What are you putting into rehab?
Gotcha.
What are you guys refining it out at? And what are you guys cash flowing?
So 78.5 was the purchase. The ARV is 135, and then Brian's gonna go over the rehab real quick. How much we put in?
I'm gonna look here. We spent 12.430 on the rehab.
So with closing costs, we're all in like 92.
Yeah.
And then what's 80% of 135? I don't know.
It's like 110.
110.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then, are you guys also pulling out cash then
Yes.
on your BRRRRs?
Yes.
All day.
Gotcha.
And it's tax-free money.
It is tax-free money. Now that's the best part. I wish we could do those
I-
in Phoenix.
Right.
That no bankers or
No, it's just that the math doesn't work.
oh yeah, of course.
Higher
Purchase
price.
price.
Yep.
Come
Yeah.
to Oklahoma.
Yeah,
Or buy
I
from
mean,
us.
there is an element of what's the word I'm looking for? Is it jealousy? It's I mean, I hear like these people, they're buying stuff for 20 in Mississippi, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And renting out for 800.
Renting all them.
Right.
They can't say they bought a portfolio of like 400 homes. It seems something like that.
Yeah.
Something crazy. I was gonna look at the cash flow on that particular deal. I was just curious.
What's
on
our
it, 'cause
average cash flow?
Our average cash flow is just under $500 a door.
Yeah.
So
that
I mean,
works
that's-
that works really well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those numbers.
So then what is your, taking construction aside, what is for your operations, your monthly overhead then?
Well, we just added these two people as their base plus commission, but our office rent's like $330 a month.
Get out of here with like $30
I
a month.
know
The
it's
studio's more.
it's brutal. I know it's about the size though. For what it's worth, it's small. We have a lot of people back in. We don't have a ton of. To be honest, it's different now with marketing. Of course, we started bumping all that up. We signed up for Real Flow and Roar texting, and we're paying a guy to build out Podio for us. And we used Podio before, but very basic things. So those costs are obviously all increasing dramatically for 2021. For 2020, we had hardly any overhead costs.
Yeah.
We have a transaction coordinator who's we made her a partner. She's awesome. Her name's Angela. She's incredible. And she takes care of everything on the back end. I just in general, between myself and her back and forth, we talk and pretty much handle the majority of the operation stuff. And so it's mostly just her expense and just basic, you think I like buying computers and printer paper and just basic stuff, to be honest. We try to get away from that. So we don't have a ton of expense.
So is Corey one of the guys sending you guys deals? But right?
Yeah, we actually, have we ever done a deal with Corey?
We haven't.
I don't think we have, but
Okay.
we obviously see his deals. No, we have through Speedy. So
Yeah, true.
he partners with
Actually,
some
several.
guys there. And so we've bought multiple deals with them, whether they came from him or not. Probably some of them did.
Yeah.
Speedy,
So
we've
just
done
in
like 5
general.
to 10, so
Yeah. So some of them came from.
So my question is this: if someone's in Oklahoma City, right? You guys make it sound easy. Maybe you guys make it seem really easy. What's to stop someone from doing the same thing you're doing if you're not having to source the deals?
See, they're doing it. We know people that are doing it. They're
There's
the
several.
same deal at a high level. Jimmy Ogle's one of ours, a good friend of
Amin.
ours, and Amin's doing it.
Jasper, Jay, there's tons.
Yeah, Eric.
Yeah.
So there are
So-
other people doing it.
Oh,
that
for
way.
Buy
sure.
and hold investors, yes.
All day.
Okay.
They do the same exact thing we do, and there's plenty of houses to go around.
Yeah.
They're buying multiple houses. Jimmy probably bought 50 homes last year. He's also a
John
wholesaler.
Nolan.
He wholesale. Yeah, John
Yeah.
Nolan, same way.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people doing that.
So there's nothing stopping anyone from doing the same
Yeah.
thing.
Not at all.
Got it.
Not at all.
So you're saying I should just move to Oklahoma
Yes,
City?
you'd have to leave it here though. It's beautiful here. My wife wants to move here. I'm dead serious. My wife was like, no, we're gonna move here. Like, we need to buy a house. Like, start looking. She's already looking at real estate.
Right.
So,
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, she needs a good agent. We got
we'll know. Yeah, we'll know where to send her.
got a lot of agents here.
Close here too.
Nice.
So one question that I don't know if it affects you guys, but do you guys get demotivated? And if so, what do you guys do to jump back on the horse? Because that's something that a lot of newer entrepreneurs run into.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really tell you why, but
Mhm.
I'll go I think it's because almost everything is out there. So there's a lot. I do all the marketing on Facebook, Instagram. It kind of gets overwhelming at times because we have, and him as well. But I have so many people hitting me up.
Mhm.
I get to a point, it's just so hard to keep up, and I'm a people pleaser. I want to get to everyone. So there's seasons where I'm just like, maybe for 1 or 2 weeks, I'm just like, what am I doing? I can't do this anymore.
Mhm.
But again, Mufasa.
I don't feel
right?
that way. I honestly just never felt that way.
No, but in a sense, man, like
Conquer the world.
without him, like he is my motivation, right?
Right.
Like just to get more deals, to get up in the morning. There was a time last fall where I stopped going to the gym. He never stopped, right? So if it wasn't for him, I probably, there'd be seasons that the demotivation would last longer. Right?
Mhm.
So really having an alpha like Brian helped me out, motivating me, it helps a lot.
So funny.
So thanks, man.
Yeah, I got you,
Appreciate
buddy. But no, I've never felt that, but I know how it'd be easy to get in that. A lot of people, one negative thing, some bad thing happens, and it's easy to just kind of be like, oh my gosh, this is terrible.
Mhm.
I think that's also a personality thing. So
Mhm.
finding people to be around you, that goes back to going to the gym. Going to the gym is great for me, but it's exponentially better, I think, for you as far as the structure that it provides in your
He
life.
needs it more for sure.
Yeah. Oh,
Not
for
the
sure.
opposite.
I need it more, but he needs it more for here. I need it for this. He needs it for this. But it's the same concept there,
Yeah.
that getting in that circumstance where you have that accountability, you have that show up, that drive, you show up and you don't, it's like going to the gym. When you get up and run, you feel better when you're done running, but you did not, when you got out of bed, a heater hits you and you're like, this is all right. But like, it's still just
Right.
it's not great. But when you get there and you get done, you're like, you feel it, even if you don't feel, I don't finish working out at the gym like, oh, I feel accomplished now. Like, it's not like that,
Mhm.
but I feel better.
Yeah.
I don't feel tired. I feel, I'm at it. We're talking to people. You're engaged with people talking. Our gym has a little nutrition center right with it where they sell shakes and teas and stuff like that. So a lot of times they'll sit and talk.
Yeah.
So you kind of stay connected mentally as well as the physical side. But the structure really matters. So if someone is demotivated, they tell them to find accountability partner, like
Mhm.
your running buddy.
Yeah.
You're the accountability partner. You get that matters a lot to people, and it can keep someone, even someone who is highly motivated and has that internal drive, they can still. I look forward to going to the gym, to seeing the people there, and I don't necessarily need it, but I look forward to going there to be around those people.
Yeah.
So it's the same concept for me.
Yeah.
So I'd find an accountability partner, someone who is interested in what they're doing. That would help too if they're in real estate. That'd be huge. They don't have to go to a gym, but just finding somewhere to go. And that's where like a RIA could be, if they, is that really common around here? The local meetups?
Rias, yeah. Oh,
Okay.
I mean, they were a lot more common before COVID. but
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
I shut mine down.
Getting connected. Yeah. And getting connected with just other people that are doing stuff. It's motivating when you're around people that are doing things.
Yeah.
Get connected to a buyer, even if it's not to bug them, but just to stay connected to someone who's actively doing. Everybody knows multiple people in town that are just buying it. It feels like they're buying everything.
Mhm.
We have people like Omega. We have a guy in town that buys tons of stuff. And we know multiples, Jimmy, and they know, get on Facebook, you'll see it.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? You'll get ads for that. You'll get all sorts, so you'll find it and follow them. It'll motivate you when they're closing on number 56. You're like,
Right.
dang, they bought 56 properties this year. It'll motivate you to do it, and it doesn't have to be competition. It just can be a driving motivation.
Yeah.
Also, like just in general, besides Brian, because he's just not human. But the motivation for anything in life can go away just as fast as it came up. So having a circle of friends, whenever you're not feeling so motivated, to get in your face and be like, hey, where are you? So example, Jack's missed the gym the last 3 days, and this is real. So Jack Juan, I know you're watching, get to the gym.
Yeah.
I mean, it's that accountability, right?
Yeah.
People are getting in your face, hey, why aren't you there? Right.
Yeah.
So
And it's no judgment. It's just to motivation. Like, hey man, it motivates me to see you there,
mhm.
and I look forward to it. I look forward to that. So
Right.
the friend circle, anybody who's doing it, that'd be the biggest thing. That doesn't seem like something that would be necessarily hard to find. I feel like you could find that pretty easy.
Right.
Well,
if how do I put it? If you're the kind of person that they would want to hang out with.
correct.
True.
You gotta be that kind of
That's fair
person.
too. Yeah.
That's true.
That's a fair point.
All right. So Bryce is laughing at the comment about Jacqueline.
Bryce Markov.
So Toby Ema, hopefully I'm saying their name correctly. How can they send you guys deals?
Toby,
Mm-hmm.
is he local in Oklahoma City?
I would assume so.
alexmoses.realtor@gmail.com. I'm not gonna put my number out there right now.
Do
Yeah.
it.
Well, you can add me.
405.
Please
Do
stop.
it.
You can add me on Facebook right now. I mean,
Yeah.
as soon as I get done with this, I'm gonna
Yeah.
check my Facebook Messenger.
Add us on
Guarantee
Facebook,
you'll have,
Messenger,
like, 5
text
years.
message, email. Mine's BLH Properties LLC
Right.
at gmail.com.
Yeah.
And send deals. We'd love to look at them.
Instagram _Real estate. I think.
Don't find my Instagram has nothing on it. It exists, but there's not literally nothing.
Yeah.
on it.
So there's a comment earlier. So hopefully they're still here. It's how do you guys deal with the 6-month holdback requirement for a cash out refi?
We don't.
So a lot of banks call a different bank.
Yeah.
There are plenty of banks out
Commercial
there
banks.
that, commercial banks. We're doing commercial loans. None of our loans are in our personal holdings. There is a way to do that if you're going to buy on a conventional. You can do a short-term loan, like a hard money loan, so we've done this before where we do. I'll give you two scenarios that would make it make sense on the conventional side, because the commercial side, if they want a 6-month holding seasoning, call a different bank.
Mhm.
There are plenty of banks out there that will do it without, or 3 months or
That's
shorter. And if they tell you 6 months, ask them for an exception. Just be like, hey, is there an exception to this?
Mhm.
Half the time they'll do it.
Yeah.
On the conventional side, one of the ways we did this, because a lot of our buyers in 2019 did conventional loans. So in order to work around the 6-month seasoning period for a cash out refi of 80%, we would actually do a hard money loan. If their all-in cost was $100,000 and that's what they needed their loan to be, we would have a hard money lender or a private money lender or their parents loan them money, brother, sister, aunt, uncle, doesn't matter, whoever would do the loan. We'd have them, quote, loan them $100,000 and write a mortgage for $100,000. Then they could bypass the seasoning by doing a rate and term refi of $100,000.
Got it.
So we would just structure it the right way on the front end so they could do a rate and term without having to wait.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What is your biggest struggle right now?
More deals? I just
Thinking,
yeah.
I don't want to make it seem like we don't struggle.
Yeah, everybody
right?
struggles.
Lately, it's been amazing. I will
Yeah.
say that.
Yeah.
Biggest struggle.
I would say just in general, it's always time management. Good when it's good and when it's bad.
Right.
Time management is always a struggle. When it's good, you feel like you have lots of time. You feel like you're kind of on it, but there's always things you could be doing that's more efficient with your time.
Mm-hmm.
You can always be more effective. I use an example of a salesman working. The best salesman you've ever met in your life could work 2 hours of work a week, or let's say 10 hours a week. Let's say they work 10 hours a week and they get 40 hours worth of work done, or 40 hours worth of production, if you will. My thought process as a business owner, it's always been like this for me of, okay, you're working 10 hours. I want you to work 40 hours and get 200 hours worth of production out. But that's not the real world. I know, exactly. Shaking your head because it's true.
Yeah.
But that's my thought process. There could always be more if
Yeah.
without pushing the limits, without working, again, some people are willing to work 50 hours a week, 60 hours a week, but even still, like working a minimum of 40, I feel like you could get, if you're ultra productive, you should just be incredibly incredibly productive if you just put in that amount of hours.
Yeah. I think you
not
find that
Rehab.
unicorn, let me know.
Correct. It doesn't exist. I know. I know.
And then what is your guys' superpower? I'll start with Alex.
I don't know if this is a superpower, but I would think, and I think most of my friends can attest to this, like when I first met them, the ability for them to trust me, the first impression, right? So just being myself and, like right now I'm a little nervous, right? But just in general, just talking to somebody, I always believe that they trust me right after that, right? I'm not being myself, not BSing them, just having the ability to have one encounter and they trust me.
Yeah. So instant trust.
Instant trust, for sure.
I would say it's mine too. Building rapport, just immediately. I had an insurance agency for those years before, and it was so easy for me because when I walk into, not easy, nothing is easy, but I mean, it was just, people don't put up their guard right away. I guess I'm not an alarming person. Like, oh, I gotta be careful of this guy. Like we're very straightforward, very honest, very. I'm trying to think the best way to say it, but just
Disarming.
No, I just mean like disarming. We're disarming people, and so and we're friendly. Like I will be polite to anyone. If I don't agree with you on something, you would never know it. I'm going to be polite and talk and act like treat you like a human, treat you like you should be treated, and that's part of. We've always been able to build rapport. We both have that building rapport thing. Yeah. I can handle a lot. I will say, like just in general, I don't get stressed very easy. That's one of the things. If I had to describe, that would probably be. Mine is just not being able to handle a lot without being completely overwhelmed with stuff.
Right. And what is the single greatest lesson you've learned?
Never leave Brian.
No.
In real estate or just in life? Or?
In general, yeah.
Greatest lesson I've learned. That's a good one.
That is a good one.
I don't want to give a cliche answer for that.
I know.
You can go first if you think of it.
I would just... We edit this? No, just kidding.
No, we can jump on something else.
No, I'm totally joking. Just be truthful.
Yeah.
Just in general, so many people like get stuck in a position where they don't know what to do, they don't know what to say, or they don't want to let someone down, and not being able to just tell them,
right.
tell them, hey, it's this or this, tell them the scenario, be real with them and tell them, apologize. If it's a bad thing, apologize, and just to be truthful with them. And I don't know that I had to learn that. I've learned that lesson my whole life, but just in real estate, that's so applicable to what we do now.
Okay.
Well, that's one of the most aggravating things.
Yeah.
Is someone screwed up.
Yeah.
And now they're silent.
Yeah.
Right. And then when you finally get hold of them, it's like, oh, my mom was in the hospital. Like, again? Like, come on.
Yeah. It's not true. You just tell me. It's
Yeah.
okay life happens.
Right.
We're real people. Everybody understands. We're understanding people, and most people are if you explain it to them.
Brett Murdoch is telling me to stay out of Mississippi. Is there a book you've gifted more than any other?
Me?
Mm-hmm.
The Bible.
Yeah.
The Bible?
Yeah.
Both of you guys?
Yeah. I'm not a reader. So it's terrible. It's embarrassing
My
to
story,
say.
like in itself, is a story of redemption. I didn't really touch on like my childhood, but if you look at the front to the back of the Bible, it's all about redemption. So I said the Bible.
Cool. And then Alex Mungia. Mungia. What are your goals for 2021?
1,000 houses, Alex. This is one of
Buy
our
more
friends.
deals from you.
Yeah.
He's a good wholesaler. He's a
great.
great wholesaler, like one of the best in the city.
Buy 1,000 or get to 1,000?
We'll do I want to do 150 sales and houses. So whether that's 100 bought and 50 sales, or vice versa. Yeah. 150 transactions.
We had our annual meeting. That was kind of our goal for this year. And if we dwarf that, it's fantastic. I think we'll get to that at least.
I think so.
And then Abby Giles wants to know what's form of marketing you guys are using to get your leads. I know we talked about you guys having wholesalers send you guys deals.
Right.
Is there a form of marketing you guys are using to get your leads?
Doing it now since we've hired the acquisitions guys. We're going to be doing SMS blast.
Yeah.
And cold calling.
SMS. We're using ROAR for the SMS side. We'll do RVMs with a different company.
Yeah.
And we sign up for RealFlow. Is just for lead. They do an AI lead gen. It's a CG member. And then that's part two. We hired 2 acquisition managers to basically call, text, all that stuff to do.
They just started this week.
And we'll do post grad. It's interesting. We've gotten different feedback from different wholesalers we talk to right now about SMS specifically, and the concern that that's going to go away in 6 months or whenever.
Oh, it's for sure going away.
Yeah. And so when that happens, they're already starting to preemptively plan for what they can do alternative, which is kind of going back to mailers. And so we talked to multiple people that said the same thing. So we're going to still do mailers. We're going to pick up pretty heavy, but then in talking with people, it seems to be doing SMS until it's gone. So,
everyone's different.
Yeah.
We already abandoned text messaging.
And a key marketing point that we're having our guys back at the office like put on a card or a text message is, hey, we own 160 rental properties. Look us up. We want yours to be 161. So we think it's going to work. It's actually, Joe's actually got like 3 deals this week. So we just started.
That's tough.
Yeah. It's different.
Yeah. We're anonymous in our text messages because we don't want to get sued for TCMA or TCPA.
So, yeah, that's why we chose ROAR specifically, because it didn't. Well, it's supposed to protect you. We'll see.
Yeah, I don't believe.
We'll see how that goes.
I don't believe anybody's protecting you.
That's what Casey told us, by the way. So.
Shout out.
All right, cool. So let me make a couple of announcements, and I want you guys to think about your last thoughts that you guys want to share.
Yeah.
So guys, please, if you guys like this, please like, subscribe, share, comment. It helps us in the algorithms. And if you guys haven't had a chance yet, check out our book on Amazon, Active Listening 2.0. We do have Terry Thayer coming next week. He's going to be talking about how he's making 6 figures a year, working 5 hours a week. So that sounds pretty fun as well. So for you guys, each of you guys, I'll start with Brian. Last thoughts.
Buy real estate. It's life-changing for people. And I know you know this, and the people that listen to the show know this, but it's extremely life-changing to build generational wealth with income. There's so many different perks to real estate, from the tax side to income side to, all those different facets of your income and wealth. And you can really build generational wealth, and you don't have to do it extremely fast. You don't have to buy 160 homes in a couple of years, and you don't have to do those things in order to really reap those benefits. It literally is a life-changing thing. And if you don't know someone, call us, message us. We'll answer questions, help with people. It doesn't matter if you're in our market or not. We can tell you, we can answer your most basic questions. Real estate is the same no matter where it's at. Just in general, the numbers just might have a different zero, an extra 0 or 2 on it. It's the same concept. Grant Cardone does the same thing we do. There's just more zeros, and so it's the same concept, different area. And so I would say find a mentor, find someone you can ask questions on. You have so much content on your website, on Facebook, everything. There's so much content in this podcast that there's no reason for someone to not jump into real estate and have a pretty good understanding, but just to do it, dive in, and ask questions if you're not sure. People are willing to, there are a lot of people, including us, that are willing to help answer questions.
Yep.
And so I would say just buy real estate. It's worth it on so many different levels.
It's a great emphasis and reminder. Even though we know it, it's
Yeah.
a great reminder.
Yeah. I would say find a mentor. So if you're new to the game, whether you're a wholesaler or you want to invest in real estate, work for free. You know what I mean? Be a person of value so you can be valued by them as well. So working for free is big time. In fact, if I were to see that today in my messages, I want to give advice to that person. I want that person coming to the gym with me. I want that person being around me, right? So be a person of value, find a mentor, and get started.
And again, one last time, how can someone reach you?
Facebook, Alex Moses, email, alexmoses.realtor@gmail.com, and then Instagram, you can just type in Alex Moses and I should come up. So
Got it.
Mine's Brian Higgins on Facebook, and it's BLH Properties LLC at gmail.com.
last thing, we're always looking for private money, so just hit me up.
Always.
Yeah.
We pay well. We pay well, just to say that. So, and we're totally fine with that because the numbers make sense.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. All right.
Awesome.
Thank you guys for watching.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cool, man.
Awesome.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Steve.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was.
Great job.
Hey, you did good.
You just saying that or what?